Frustration appears to be mounting among the Boston Bruins players as this season goes further and further off the rails.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Monday, March 24th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And on today's episode, we are going to talk about Boston's 2 losses over the weekend, their league worst stretch over the past 6 games, and touch on some perhaps bubbling tension among the players, while the short-term plan of tanking this season is kind of on track. Let's be honest. The Bruins are needing to lose as many games as possible here in order to maximize this down season. Anyways, we'll get into all that here in a moment. First, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. And you can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. I am a lifelong Boston Bruins fan. I've been covering this team for various outlets for about 20 years now. I was a full-time hockey news editor for The Score up here in Ontario, Toronto, living in Guelph, home of the Storm, Matt Potter's junior team, and have been hosting this podcast since 2019. And it's been a long time since the Bruins have been this bad. And it seems as though there's some frustration building. They lost to San Jose on Saturday, the worst team in the NHL. Then they rebounded with a 7-2 loss to the Los Angeles Kings on Sunday. And the big storyline from this one was a missed opportunity for the Bruins to be much more watchable than they have been lately. And that was when Jeremy Swayman skated up to center ice, took off his mask, dropped his blocker and trapper, and was very ready to go with his counterpart, Darcy Kemper of the Los Angeles Kings, until the officials intervened and robbed us of a goalie fight. Just an incredible missed opportunity. That would have been the top of the highlights everywhere, but instead we have, the refs pushing them apart and saying, get back to your creases. Just an incredible missed chance for some real entertainment here from the Boston Bruins. Now, it was 3-2 at that point for the Kings, and it devolved from there into a 7-2 decision. And there's a clip going around here on Monday morning of Nikita Zadorov being asked kind of what he thought about Jeremy Swayman's willingness to stand up for his teammates and drop the equipment, not the gloves necessarily. And Zadorov kind of was like, oh, is that what he was doing? No comment. And it kind of reads like, hey, buddy, stay in your net and maybe do your job and let the skaters take care of the physicality. Zadorov, of course, known for partly dropping the gloves. We know that big fight a couple weeks ago against Sam Bennett. He's had a couple since. And it's like, it read as though Zadorov was saying, buddy, do your job because you're not doing it much as of late. And Jeremy Swayman's poor play has been a huge reason why the Bruins aren't as competitive this season as they were expected to be. And multiple things can be true here at the same time. The Bruins skaters can certainly be frustrated with Jeremy Swayman for not stepping up this season as the 1A option for the Bruins, as was kind of promised, or as he advocated that he should be when he not held out, but stood his ground at the very least for the kind of contract that he thought he was worthy of. He has not lived up to that as of yet. An .892 save percentage, a .312 goals against average so far this season. And the last little stretch here has been pretty abysmal. 696 save percentage in this one, 844 in a loss to Vegas last week, 895 in a loss to Tampa Bay, 733 in a loss to 733 in a loss to Ottawa. His last decent start was against the Florida Panthers in that win where they won 2 in a row coming out of the trade deadline. So, yeah, you could see some frustration on Nikita Zadorov's face. He signed with the Boston Bruins, a team that had beaten Toronto in the playoffs last year, took Florida to a game 6. He thought he was jumping on as part of the solution. Now, he hasn't necessarily come as advertised. It's taken him some time to become acclimated to his new team and find his role here. But there's a real leadership void now, and perhaps it's an opportunity for him, Elias Lindholm, to step up as kind of guys who are going to be here for a while. So you can see that frustration. He isn't playing for the team that he thought he was going to be. And even though there's guys that have been moved out, there's still the guys that are there that are expected to perform, and Swayman has not done so. But at the same time, again, multiple things can be true at once. At the same time, it's not as if Boston's defense has been doing Swayman a lot of favors, right? This defensive group hasn't been lights out, and they're also missing Hampus Lindholm, Charlie McAvoy. So it's very difficult to get a real read on the overall team defense when your top 2 defensemen are out. Nikita Zadorov is not a top pairing defenseman by any stretch when everybody is healthy. And Swayman was just trying to do his part, trying to stand up for his team. We know he's been jonesing for a fight for as long as he's been in the NHL. Perhaps he was a bit rattled by that, not being able to drop the gloves. You got that adrenaline going. It's hard to settle back in and do what you're actually being paid for. Again, multiple things true at the same time. Swayman has not performed up to expectations or anywhere near expectations, but the team in front of him has not either. And you can't hang it solely on him, the team's struggles this season. And let's be honest, post-trade deadline, the goal isn't really to win here. It's to reset, retool, and maximize the opportunity here to get a top 5, top 3, maybe number 1 overall draft pick. Losing to San Jose is a positive to that end. Losing to the Kings is a positive to that end. Now, it can't be long, this dip, right? If we're talking similarly here this time next year, or even in October, November next year, then that's when Don Sweeney, Cam Neely, their seats shouldn't be hot. They should be like on fire. The Bruins have a real opportunity here to do a quick turnaround by getting a top 5 pick, by getting Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm back, by spending in free agency with their almost $30 million in available cap space, by adding legit star players, not Lindholm, Zadorov, who, let's be honest, you didn't foresee Lindholm being a $7.75 million third-line center. The Bruins just got out of Charlie Coyle's contract, who was arguably overpaid as a third-line center or second-line center. Anyways, the frustration's setting in among the players, but it's kind of going according to plan here when you look at the bigger picture. And I can understand why Zadorov would be frustrated. This isn't what he signed up for. He sees Jeremy Swayman not stopping the puck, but Swayman is also seeing guys perhaps not playing the puck properly, not playing the guys in front of him properly, and it's all adding up to hopefully something that these guys can shake off and see as a one-off problem, be part of the solution moving forward, and hopefully it's not fracturing the locker room here as guys maybe vie for leadership roles moving forward. So that was a big storyline from last night. The non-fight, some frustrated feelings coming out afterwards, the guys wanting to perform, but the reality is they're set up right now to raise their draft lottery chances. Playoffs no longer really a possibility and haven't been for a little bit here through this losing streak that we'll take a look at here as the podcast continues. Also update the actual tankathon odds for the Bruins at this point in the season. If you're looking for a snack that is both nutritious and delicious, all you have to do is crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you feel full longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. If I'm snacking at my desk on a road trip, just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. But if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are also a classic favorite. Get snacking, get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Thanks so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your day. It's available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. So the Bruins have been quite bad over the last little bit. We all remember those 2 games coming out of the trade deadline. They beat the Florida Panthers 4-0. Oh no, Tampa Bay Lightning 4-0. They beat the Panthers. You think, oh, maybe there's a chance here that they can turn things around. Maybe they're back. But since then, it has been abysmal. They have the worst point percentage in the NHL over the last 6 games, 0.83. 1 point over their last 6 games, 0-5-1. That single point came in the overtime loss to the Buffalo Sabres. So that's not exactly inspiring. They have allowed 4 points. What are the goals they've allowed over that stretch? Let's see here. Goals 4 over that stretch. The Bruins have scored 1.83 goals per game over the last 6 games, and they've allowed a league high 5 goals per game. And they've also allowed 29.7 shots per game, which is 5th. So this has been a terrible, terrible stretch for the Boston Bruins. They have not scored a power play goal over the last 6 games, and their penalty kill is rolling at 69.2%, which is 24th. Now, overall, the Bruins have dropped to 13th in the Eastern Conference, tied with the Pittsburgh Penguins for the 3rd fewest points in the conference. Philadelphia is kicking around at 4 points back. The Sabres are 7 points back with 3 games in hand. So there's a real chance the Bruins could drop down to 14th, 15th, perhaps even 16th here in the Eastern Conference. Their goal differential is now minus 46, which is only 2 off the bottom here for the Eastern Conference. Penguins are at minus 48. Now, complicating things a bit is that there's some teams over in the West that are much worse. The Sharks, complete write-off at 47 points. The Bruins have 22 more points than the Sharks and still managed to lose to them on Saturday. That's how bad things are at the moment. The Blackhawks down there, the Predators. The Bruins have some teams that would have to pick up some points as the Bruins continue their losing streak in order to raise their draft status. And we'll take a look at that tankathon here later on in the podcast. But this stretch has been absolutely abysmal for the Bruins, but also, again, kind of according to plan. You had to expect when Don Sweeney pulled off all those moves at the trade deadline that all hope of making the playoffs was gone and that they were looking at next season here. There were some positives. Elias Lindholm scored. Morgan Geekie scored. He's been one of the best goal scorers, like, league-wide for a little bit here since having that healthy scratch. But the Bruins are now 6 points behind the Montreal Canadiens, who have 3 games in hand for that wild card spot. It's not happening. Casey Middlestat, after the game, said, "I wish I knew how to end this losing streak. It comes down to just coming out, playing hard. You get in a slump like this and maybe you're gripping your stick a little more than normal. Comes down to coming out, playing your game, playing with some poise and some calm." Now, it looked all right for the Bruins. They scored 19 seconds into this one, but again, went off the rails from there. And the Bruins seem lost on the ice, but it's going according to that plan for Don Sweeney and Cam Neely and Charlie Jacobs. This has been deemed a lost season, and the hope now is that they can get a higher draft pick and perhaps rebound pretty quickly with some additions in the offseason. The Bruins had won 14 straight games against the Sharks dating back to 2016-17, the longest active winning streak by a team against a single opponent. That's out the window. Casey Middlestat did score for the Bruins. Korpisalo in that one had 18 saves. The Bruins had some opportunities in that one, but they weren't unable to finish off their opportunities. Joonas Korpisalo deserved better, and he has been the better goalie all season long. Let's be quite honest here in that regard. It's just been a really tough stretch here for the Bruins, but by design. Don't forget, it's by design. If you go back to, let's see here, let's go back to the beginning of January. Morgan Geekie is one of the top scorers in the NHL. He's 10th in goals with 17 over the past 33 games, which is level with Alex DeBrincat, Tom Wilson. And if we kick it back to December 1st, it looks even better for Geekie. He is at 23 goals. Very few players have more than him over that stretch. Jason Robertson, Kyle Connor, Jake Gensel, our own David Pastrnak, and Leon Draisaitl. Pretty impressive stretch here for Morgan Geekie, who does indeed deserve to be extended, although they should be wary of his shooting percentage and perhaps seeing what kind of regression there may be next season. Coming up for the Bruins, though, they're still on this road trip. They have to play the Ducks still, who are a team that is further down the standings than they are. They also have to play the Detroit Red Wings. Those games are both coming up this week. So on the podcast, we will, of course, recap those games. You have Anaheim on Wednesday. Then you have Detroit on Saturday before they're finally come home for a game next week against the Washington Capitals. For now, though, Tank Watch is on, and we'll update the playoff probability and the number 1 overall pick probabilities here as the podcast continues. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's very easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Now, Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check all your finances, spending, even plan some long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever as well. You can track your shared personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. At this point in this season, I am really all for the Bruins losing as many games as possible in order to maximize their draft standing. All right. I'm not expecting the Bruins to win on any given night. You don't love the body language from Zadorov after last night's game, or perhaps questioning Jeremy Swayman for wanting to fight. You don't want there to be any rifts in the locker room now that there's a leadership void. Maybe some guys are like, who's stepping up here? Who's going to be the next captain? Who's going to guide this team? Maybe there's some resentment among guys who have been there for a while, guys who have just come aboard, not necessarily earning that leadership or respect yet. It's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. And until there's a clear captain and also a new head coach, then it's going to be a bit tricky. Because maybe they're looking at Joe Sacco and thinking, yeah, buddy, you probably won't be here past this summer, at least in an interim head coaching capacity. Someone's going to be the captain. That's all part of the retool, the reset. New coach, new captain, hopefully some big-time players acquired in free agency, like a Mitch Marner perhaps. If you look at the roster as it is right now, it's not built to win, basically. Let's be honest. Now, I forgot to mention Fabian Lysell did make a couple appearances over the weekend, and he did not look super out of place here for the Boston Bruins, which is a good sign in the right direction. Yes, he's not playing huge minutes, and he's being somewhat sheltered, but through 3 games at 5-on-5, Lysell's been on the ice for 33 shot attempts for and 20 against, which is 62.6% shot attempt differential. Tops among all Bruins this season. Yes, a very small sample size, but in terms of shots, he's been on the ice for 13 for, 7 against. Goals is individual or level at 2 apiece. But so far, he hasn't been, part of the problem at the very least. He's looked pretty good. He's on the ice for more shot attempts for than against, more shots for than against, and has 11 shot attempts, 5 shots, a couple scoring chances. He has not looked out of place at all, which is a positive for Lysell at this point, and I'm excited to see him down the stretch here for the Bruins. Now, in terms of chances of making the playoffs, according to The Athletic, it's less than 1%. According to Money Puck, it's basically 0%. And so we turn our attention to the Tankathon, and we're going to run some top overall pick odds here as we see what are the chances of the Bruins getting a top 5, top 3, maybe the top overall pick. So let's look at it right now. The Bruins are 8th. They have the 8th best chance of getting the first overall pick, 6%, which is behind Pittsburgh, Seattle, Philly, Buffalo, Nashville, Chicago, San Jose. Now, Nashville, Chicago, San Jose, San Jose, Chicago for sure, well behind. So they're going to have the best odds for a while. But there is some potential movement here between Nashville and Boston here, 3 and 8. Let's sim the lottery here once. what do we get? Bruins, first overall pick on the first running of the draft lottery odds. How perfect would that be? We'll do it a couple more times. Here they fall down to 9th, which would be a bit of a bummer. You don't want to go down for sure. We'll run it another time. We're going to run it 5 times here. Twice we've gotten the first overall pick here. Feeling great on this Monday morning. Want to run it again. They drop to 9th. So that's 2 runnings. They've got the first overall pick. 2, they've dropped down to 9th. Let's run it one more time here. And they stay in 8th. So 2 best case scenarios, 2 unfortunate runnings of it, and then 1 where they just stay exactly where they are. But to get the first overall pick twice here on this Monday morning, that is a fantastic feeling, and it would all kind of be worth it if the Bruins are able to get the first overall pick, because there are some fantastic players on the board. And right now, according to Tankathon, their mock draft, they have James Higgins, who would be probably the guy that we want the most out of Boston College. He's projected to go 4th overall. The Bruins right now in that 8th spot, they're projected to take Roger McQueen from the Brandon Wheat Kings. These are all guys that we're going to get familiar with here as the season winds down, as the playoffs go on, as we get ready for draft, because it's going to be a different postseason here on the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. No playoffs to take care of, but we'll do some player reviews, draft hype, and looking ahead to what we hope will be an eventful offseason with the Bruins having some money to spend, even with some RFAs and perhaps some UFAs to re-sign. All right, that's it for today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, my friends. I hope you had a great weekend. We were down in Niagara watching our kid play 4 basketball games this weekend. They only went 1-3, which was a tough, but they beat the team we really wanted to beat. And I caught my kid hitting a 4-point play on video, so that was something that we'll look back on fondly. That was a pretty cool moment. If you follow on Instagram, you'll see it there, as well as if you follow along on the TikTok where I've been posting some Bruins reels. So yeah, I hope you're all taking care of yourselves, taking care of each other. Please do have a great Monday, and we will talk to you again here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.